Today is the first day of the Tokyo Motor Show, and one of 2019's most anticipated bikes has been unveiled, the Kawasaki ZH2. So in today's video, we're going to look at every little bit of information that Kawasaki has released about this incredible looking supercharged naked. The Z line of bikes stretches way back to the original Z1 of 1972, but Kawasaki claimed that this latest edition will push the boundaries of the naked bike market by inheriting much of the cutting-edge technology and engineering of their H2 and H2R superbikes. It'll use the same 998cc inline 4, although Kawasaki have said that the motor will be a combination of both powerful and manageable, which means a different tune to the out-and-out performance orientation of the fared H2s. They say that the ZH2 has a targeted peak power of 197 horsepower, which I guess means they don't have the final figure confirmed yet. But for context, that's a fair amount less than the claimed 228 horsepower of the H2 and a lot less than the 306 of the H2R. But that's to be expected, as naked bikes are typically intended to balance speed with a bit more comfort and practicality. 197 horsepower puts it in a similar range to the sports touring H2 SX, and it also has the same peak torque of 137 Newton meters, which suggests that the tune is pretty much the same, although it occurs 1000 RPM lower down, which should help with day-to-day mid-range riding. It's also worth considering that the Ducati V4 Street Fighter is due to launch later today at their world premiere event, and I'll certainly be following up with a video about it when the full information and specs become available. But it's expected to produce 205 horsepower, which is 8 more than this bike, so it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the bike compares and whether the Kawasaki can compete. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button to see that video when it goes live. Many features of the motor carry over from the H2 line, such as the slip assist clutch for a nice light lever feel, a MotoGP style dog ring gearbox which should make for quick, crisp gear changes, and the use of oil as a coolant with jets to spray onto the chain drive for the supercharger, on the underside of the pistons, and onto the transmission. One of the benefits is that it removes the need for a bulky intercooler. The ZH2 inherits the notion of a steel trellis frame from its sportier siblings, although it's been redesigned to give better turning characteristics at low and medium speed, which should make it a more practical choice than the fared H2s. Another big change to the chassis is the traditional double-sided swing arm, closely modelled on that of the ZX-10R, which means unfortunately that one of the beautiful signature design features of the H2 line isn't present. That decision could have been made to keep the cost down, with Kawasaki potentially looking at a more achievable price than the £26,500 of the H2, although prices and availability in the UK are yet to be confirmed. The front end of the bike appears to be well spec'd with radially mounted Brembo M4 calipers and Showa's upside down separate function big piston forks. There's also a Showa monoshock at the rear, but the rear brake appears to be Nissin branded, which is another downgrade from the H2 that uses a 2-pot Brembo to match the front, again probably to save a little on costs. An up and down quick shifter is present on the ZH2, which is to be expected. They're becoming more and more commonplace as standard on naked sports bikes. Triumph's 2020 Street Triple, for example, which launched a couple of weeks back, includes one as well. Kawasaki described the specifications of the ZH2 as class-leading in their press release, and although they look pretty good and perhaps balance performance with price a little better than the other H2s, I don't know if they can truly be defined as class-leading until we know the full details of the V4 Street Fighter and KTM's imminent Super Duke R update. One area that jumps out on the ZH2 spec sheet is the curb weight, which tips the scales at 239 kilograms. That's 1 kilogram more than the H2. KTM quote a dry weight of 195 kilograms for their 2019 Super Duke R, so its wet weight ought to be a good deal lighter than the ZH2. That said, the KTM only peaks at 174 horsepower, so it'll be interesting to see when they update it which bike will come out with the best power to weight ratio and therefore straight line speed. My bet is on the Ducati. In terms of tech, a Bosch IMU is present, which enables cornering traction control and ABS, anti-wheelie control, as well as selectable rider and power modes. LED lighting is employed all around, right down to the indicators and plate light, and cruise control will be a welcome feature for anyone putting in significant motorway miles on a regular basis. The entirely TFT display removes the analog part of the H2 and H2R dash. Personally, I prefer the simplicity, although I know that some riders appreciate a proper needle for the revs, especially on a bike that we can assume will get ridden hard. You can also connect with your phone and the Kawasaki Rideology app, which gives more information about your rides like route, gear position, revs and lean angles. It also allows you to see more info about the bike's status like odometer, fuel gauge and maintenance schedule, as well as the ability to set modes and rider aids remotely. Phone features like calls and messages can also be relayed to the dash. In terms of aesthetics, Kawasaki have, of course, applied their Tsugomi design ethos to this model, which gives it that distinctive busy Kawasaki style. Whether it's to your taste or not is totally subjective, but it certainly stands out from the market and can't be accused of being boring. The press shots depict black, red and green colour options, but really there's only one true choice for a Kawasaki. It's going to be interesting to see how this battle for the king of the hypernakeds pans out as the details of the Ducati and KTM offerings become available over the coming days and weeks. And I certainly can't wait for someone in the motorcycling press to do a proper head-to-head when they manage to get hold of all the bikes. What do you guys think of the ZH2? Would you love a 200 horsepower naked on the road, or is it realistically too much power? I'd also love to know in the comments what you think of that styling. And if you're new here and you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe and I'll see you next time.